Welcome back to T-Squared. This week's segment is going to be on design development of websites. You decided you're going to be into e-commerce. This is where you need to start. I have the pleasure today of having a good friend Nirav Sheth here of Annata Designs.
Thank you so
Nirav,
much.
great to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you.
Maybe if you can just give us kind of a brief background of your background and your firm, what you do.
Yeah, Annata Sure. Annata Design got created in 2009, so around 8 years ago. And we've just really been focused on the e-com space, really, because as it started growing, there was content management, a lot of different places where websites were running, but in terms of long-term growth for online businesses, it really came to e-com. Everybody started either merchandising, selling digital products, etc. So we found our grounding there, and we've helped launch probably over 200 companies.
Wow.
In the past 8 years. But within those, we've actually helped consolidate, and we really now represent a group of about a dozen clients on an ongoing basis to help them grow. So Annata Design overall has been doing really well because we've been growing with our clients. As the companies scale and grow, we've been really putting more and more efforts into each one of them.
Fantastic. I think what I find with my clients are sometimes early stage, sometimes they've been at it for a while.
Yeah.
When I look at the site, they come to me and they go, "We got it covered. We have a site, beautiful design. We're doing some e-commerce business," and it seems that you can end up coming into those situations and then having to basically start from scratch in many cases. So what is it you find when you come into these situations for someone who's already got a site? What are the common mistakes they make, or what things get overlooked in terms of what you see in terms of what you need to do when you come into some of these situations?
Yeah, so the number one thing I see is that the story is missed during the process of educating the customer of what you are and who you represent and what is your brand, what products are you selling. So a lot of times we spend time looking at, well, how pretty is the design, or are we following design trends? But we miss on the copy, and we also miss on just how well are we directing users to understand what we're about and what we're trying to provide to them. I think the education aspect is missing a lot, and
Right.
the storytelling process gets missed, which is outside. A lot of times people think, oh, I'm creating a website, I just need to get it designed, and then I need to get it developed. But what about the copy? What about the photography? What about everything else that kind of really tells the brand story of who you are? So the narrative is one piece that we really love to focus on when we're seeing a site that's not performing as well. And then the second part of it we see is like the user experience of the end user, the customer. So one of the ways that a lot of businesses tend to get when they're trying to redesign, or where they're like, we want to be new, we want to be fresh, we want to like change the bounds. But what becomes challenging in that aspect is when you're changing how e-commerce works fundamentally, users are not maybe trained towards that. So when you're building product pages, category pages, the entire funnel, you think about what can I innovate in, what can I be different in? But what becomes hard for the consumer is that they don't know how that site operates. And so if you start adding complexity to it, or adding something that doesn't make sense to them, you're actually losing the potential customer that you have, because they're already trained in a certain way to look at the site and work with the site. And by you changing that, you're actually defeating kind of the sale. You're blocking the sale from happening. So I think a lot of times it's just going back to the simplicity of what makes a product page really great, what makes a category page to make it easier to browse products and find products, and how do you just get through the checkout simpler. Sometimes it's just getting back down to focus and simplicity.
Yeah, someone had said, I don't know if it's a good analogy, but they said, assume that your customers had one too many drinks, and it needs to be really simplified. So on one hand, you want to differentiate yourself through your branding, but on the other hand, the average consumer needs to navigate this site and has to discover it in the quickest possible way, because you're going to lose them, aren't you? Yeah,
you're going to lose them. And the couple principles I like using is that you make the consumers think the least amount, so make them do less, because the less you make them do, the less decisions they have to make overall. And two, once they've decided that they want your product, everything in their mind is telling them, maybe I don't want this, maybe I shouldn't get this. So the least distractions, the least number of interruptions, the least number of things they have to do will actually allow them to check out and purchase. But everybody's very finicky online. So when they're browsing, they also have probably 10, 12 other tabs open at the same time. So you want to be able to, once you capture their audience, you only have a limited time span. So you want to do everything in your power to make it very, very simple and guided.
Yeah, is this analogous to like the Amazon one-click? Like, are they the best at what they do in that way? Like, is that where you're going with this?
Yeah, it's a part of that. So with Amazon's like one-click checkout, it just makes it simpler because it's just one click and they're done and they're out the door. It's exactly that, because the more time that they spend on your site after they've decided, the worse it's going to get. And that we've seen every time and time again. That doesn't mean you necessarily go from like a 3-step checkout to a 1-step checkout. That doesn't really make it any bit faster. What does make it faster is that you're not making the customer do a lot of things. Like you make them type a zip code, you already know what the city, state, and country is, so don't make them type that. If you have an email address, make them type it in, but don't ask them whether they're a customer or if they have an account with you. You know that. You have their email address. So tell them, hey, you have an account. If you want to check out faster, click this way. If you don't click this. Like and just re-enter your information. So you're doing things that just makes them not have to think too much. And even on the cart page, sometimes just sending them directly to checkout is faster because they already have decided and they don't want to add another product. They don't want to add more quantity. They just want to be out the door and be done.
Nirav, I think we've got so much raw material here. I think we're going to do 2 segments. So I wanted to thank you for first segment, and thanks for coming out. Great to see you again.
Appreciate it, Trent.
Okay. Thanks for coming out to T Squared. We got such great stuff from Nirav. We're going to do this in 2 segments. Thanks for coming out for segment 1. Stay tuned for segment 2. Thanks for coming out to T Squared.